All right. Recording in progress. All right. So, how's everybody doing? How's your day going?
Great.
Well, now that we're all here,
Good, good. Is everybody in LA?
Except Emily's in
Yeah.
Texas and Rolland's in Santa Barbara.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but I
Fair
don't
enough.
live in Texas. I don't live there. I don't live here.
You
She's-
don't live. Fair enough.
She's
Okay,
actually a working musician. She's on tour.
that's
Yes,
exciting.
I am. I have
Very
a show at the end of the hour, so that's why I look done from here up.
Done, ready to go. Okay, well, very exciting.
Ready to go from here up.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we might as well dig right in here.
Absolutely.
So again, my name's Paul Howard with Music Mecca. So we'll kick off the Knights of Swing official roundtable. And Rolland, I figured we would start with you since this is your creation, essentially. So Knights of Swing all started with you since it's partially based on your story. But can you tell us about the music scene of the late 40s and early 50s and your part in it?
Yeah, a couple of things. It's pronounced Rolland, not Roland.
Rolland, I apologize.
I have a hearing problem, so speak distinctly, if you will. I got what you said pretty much.
I talk fast.
My old ears, like I had Richard say in the movie, must be these old ears. So anyway,
Yes, I remember that line.
yeah, and I honestly think that the nerves don't send the messages quite as quickly. So you basically are asking about the music scene. Is that what that first question
If you could just, about the music scene, what it was from your experience, what it was like in the 40s and 50s, and just your personal experience.
The big bands, of course, were just becoming, had already come in the 40s, like, of course, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Les Brown, all those big bands, and they were all over Southern California. And so as kids, we listened to the radio and we listened to this music. And then just to kind of move ahead a little bit, the way I got into this was that I went to a school called the Castle, and we were the Knights and Ladies, and so we wanted to form a big swing band, which we did. I know I'm moving ahead of what you're asking, but the music scene itself still included a lot of older bands like that appealed to the adults. There was not much music that was aimed at kids at that time, but there was a lot of big bands and jazz and swing and that kind of music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. And so since you originally wrote the music and all the lyrics, can you tell us about your songwriting process? What does the day life of your songwriting process look like, or what did it look like?
Well, let me give you an example, because the first song in the musical is Schoolroom Blues, and actually I wrote that when I was a 7th grade teacher in 1956 for my 7th grade class, and I decided that could be used in a musical, and I sent it to Emilio, and he liked it and arranged it, and then I thought I need another song if I'm going to do this. And when I was a kid, the song that we usually ended the dances with was Dream, written by Johnny Mercer. And so I wanted a song that would create that same mood, wouldn't sound like Dream, but would create that same mood. So I thought about it, and then I wrote Love Is Ours Tonight, which is the song that that they danced to but that then was first the melody. I thought I'm going to write a melody that captures this sort of mood. And once I got the melody going, the lyrics just came. I had to work at it, but usually melody and lyrics come together, or vice versa. They're usually together, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah. That answers it.
And once I got going on that, then it was fairly easy. I mean, probably I wrote that song in, I don't know, 30 minutes. I mean, it just
Impressive.
you know.
Yeah.
If
That's
I may
impressive.
if I may jump in here, you know, Rolland is an extremely prolific songwriter. I think he's probably written over 300 songs, and I might be underestimating, but he has just drawers full of songs that he's written. And it's an amazing thing what he does is he'll literally sit down at the piano, he'll write out the melody by hand on a sheet, and then he puts that sheet in the typewriter and then types the lyrics underneath the notes. And it's just uncanny how well the lead sheets delineate the melody and the basic chords to the song. I don't know how he does it, and I have all the
It's
original
amazing.
sheets from him, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely a bit of a virtuoso, is what it sounds like.
Mhm.
Okay.
So can you tell us a bit about your relationship with Emilio, Rolland, and the collaborative process that you guys, took together throughout the music in the film?
Yes. Well, if it weren't for Emilio, the Knights of Swing would not exist, period. Because he takes my songs that are on a piece of paper, hold on a minute. I've got it. Ed, I'm okay. Okay, bye. Phone call. I'm going to shut my phone
Yeah,
off.
that's all right.
Okay. Emilio takes my songs and basically, and sometimes it's pretty straight arranging. Other times it's a little modification of the melody, but generally, and then he adds his genius to it in terms of chord changes, maybe a little rhythm change, and the other nuances that come with it. And we maybe talk about that, and then eventually he comes up with the arrangement and orchestration. But we've worked together now for over 20 years, and his ability to take what I've written and maybe interpret it and say, well, I think this is what Rolland actually intended here, that's pretty uncanny. Because sometimes I'm not really writing down exactly what I'm hearing or what I want, and he's able to capture that. I mean, we've worked together so much that he's very, very good at that. And so that's the way it's worked. On a few songs, he's taken them and added so much to them that then it's a collaboration. And there's one song in the Knights of Swing, the Victory Stomp, as a matter of fact, that is a collaboration because he added so much to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Rolland.
Yeah.
So,
Excuse me, there was somebody's email thing keeps bonging, that email's coming in. I'm not sure who it is. If we could turn that off, it's a little distracting.
yeah, I heard that as well. Emilio, I wanted to ask you, aside from Peggy Lee, whose song "Things Are Swingin'" is featured in the film, and who you played with for 11 years as her accompanist and conductor, who are the other inspirations for the music in the film?
Well, Rolland's songs lead me to a certain place as far as the style is concerned. Once we got the idea to do the Knights of Swing, and Rolland presented that to me, I started just taking the songs that I said, well, do you have a song that does this, or do you have a song that does this? And I would my inspiration for big band music has always been Thad Jones' Mel Lewis Orchestra, which comes out of the Count Basie style of orchestration. And I know Gordon's a big fan of both Count Basie and Sammy Nestico, who was one of his most important arrangers and writers. And Thad Jones, some people don't actually even know this, is Thad Jones was the fourth trumpet player in Count Basie's band and did a bunch of arrangements for Count Basie. And then he started his own band and carried that tradition of just pure swing. But his Thad's music was much more complicated and much more it's intellectual in some ways, but still had the ability to swing. And that's always been my starting places, like how would Count Basie's band play this, and so then I took that approach with Rolland's songs. In fact, one of the songs that's in the Nights of Swing is called Guessing Game, and we play that at the Christmas dance. And Rolland actually originally wrote that as a country song, and it was this very, very simple lyrics, you know. Oh, guessing game, and it'd be like ring, ding, ding. You can play it like that if you wanted to, like a twangy country song. And I just turned it into this swing and big band song. So that's the kind of relationship that we have, as far as me taking what he's written, and what he mentioned earlier was very interesting, because I'm sort of like a mind reader in a way with him, because like he said, he'll write something and I'll say, well, I don't think that's what he meant. I think what he meant was this. And I'll play it for him. He goes, well, yeah, that's what I meant. And so we've established this chemistry between the two of us that's pretty uncanny.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's incredible.
I don't do that too often, but we've been working on a big project here where I wrote many songs. It's called 47 Days, and Emilio did that a lot in that particular one, because it was a whole different kind of music, not swing, different kind of music. So yeah, well, I guess he's a mind reader. I don't know.
Yeah.
A great arranger will say that.
So Emilio, do you have a favorite, song in the movie, and why? Is there any that resonates with you the most, one or two that really strikes a chord with you, if you had to choose?
That's a tough question, because I love all of these songs so much, but you got to Have a Dream is really the theme song for the band, and the way Darlene Koldenhoven arranged the vocals for the three Bs, which Emily Goglia is our lead singer, is it very that tight harmony, Andrew style arranging, and just the way that whole thing came together, I think is one of my favorites for sure, because it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps every once in a while on that one.
Yeah, understandably so. So in total, I see looks like 14 original songs, a dozen with vocals, 2 instrumentals, and then of course the Peggy Lee classic. Will a soundtrack be released?
We'd love to, yes. That's the plan. After the movie comes out, we've actually even been talking about doing a limited pressing vinyl version of
cool.
it.
Oh, awesome.
Which is, it's become so popular nowadays.
Yeah.
Gordon, did you release some of your Fat Band stuff on vinyl?
Yeah, we did. When you hear vinyl, you cannot believe that we ever deviated from that format. It sounds so good, and I there's probably some scientists could tell you why the acoustic waves from analog music interacts with the body in a different way than digital music, but I really think there's something there that's working. The thing about vinyl now, it's so popular now. You want to try to release a record. I have a record we're trying to release. I can't get into the pressing plant until January 2023. They're booked a year out, every single one of them. So I think people are kind of starting to, of all genres, not just, swing or jazz or classical music, but all genres are kind of seeing, this is kind of a unique and special way to listen to music.
It definitely is. Yeah. So Gordon, did you model your Mr. Hughes after anyone? And who are some of your inspirations, from that era, from the 40s and 50s or before?
Well, Mr. Hughes is probably mostly me, actually. I mean, with way less sarcasm, because I kind of, I grew up in this whole thing. I was one of those kids as a high school kid. I fell in love with big band music, hearing Count Basie and bands like that. And I knew I had to make a life out of it, even though at that time in the 70s, it was clearly out of the mainstream. And all my classmates thought I was nuts, right? Then I get out of college and find out that most of our culture thinks that I'm nuts to put my life into this music, But it was always home for me. So I spent a lot of time with, at big band competitions and rehearsing and talking to adjudicators and people like Mr. Hughes. So it wasn't really too much of a stretch, to kind of get inside that guy.
Yeah, fair enough. And of course, I know you've got your own 18-piece band, the Big Fat Band. And of course, I did an interview with you a handful of months ago. But What artists, like nowadays, modern day artists, do you feel are carrying on the tradition of big band and swing music, in the 21st century?
The artist that Emilio mentioned, Count Basie and Thad Jones. And Thad Jones is maybe a lesser known name to most people. He did start in Basie's band, and as Emilio said, wrote charts for Basie and had a very distinctive trumpet style. His charts are also really distinctive, probably too distinctive for Basie, who rejected a lot of them. And those charts that Basie rejected became the basis of his book for his own band when he formed it in the late 60s. And what he did is he took the values of the swing music of the 40s, but contemporized it in terms of the blues, in terms of writing compositional complexity and innovation, in terms of innovation of form. So it didn't have a kind of traditional song form. It could kind of be more free associating, if you will. And even in the 70s, he started to kind of introduce some, kind of rock and roll rhythms. Now, for me, hearing Thad Jones and Mel Lewis play rock and roll sounded like a duck out of water. Because I grew up listening to the Beatles, listening to Stevie Wonder and guys like that. So, but almost even Count Basie did probably 5 or 6 albums of the Beatles music. So I think that the artists that interest me are people that respect and admire the music of the 40s, but are not trying to run a museum.
Yeah.
They want to make it relevant for our time, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what's very interesting about the Knights of Swing. It clearly has its heart back in a different age, and yet here it is. Here it is today, full of young people that that really believe in the music, and people like Rolland and Emilio that put their time and treasure into bringing it to life.
Yeah, very interesting. And so, can you tell us about some of the work you do with various school band programs, including your alma mater at Cal State Northridge?
Well, I work a lot in that because when I put my band together in 2000, I realized I think this is my core demo. These kids that are playing this music in their school band. So I went right to them and marketed to them. And I think that's probably something we're going to do for this film. Mm-hmm. Go to the band geeks. The band geeks get it, right? Now, it's an uphill battle because the arts in the schools are decaying and have been for decades. This is our fight. This is where we have to turn it around, I think, is in the schools, arts in the schools, so people hear big band jazz and don't go, that's some old crap, Yeah. So they don't talk about it in terms of demographics, or this music of this era or that era. So they just listen to it on its own terms, and they hear the energy of it. They hear the heart of it, and they hear it live. Because the difference between hearing a band live, I used to go to Disneyland every summer and hear Count Basie, and Woody Herman and Buddy Rich and Stan Kenton. I'm sitting this far away from the band, and those guys are playing, and you could feel the air hit you. The difference between that and listening to music on this is night and day. That's the difference. And people need to experience that, to go hear an orchestra in person, go hear a live band with human beings playing the music. It sells itself if you can get them to do that.
Yeah, big difference. Yeah, very interesting.
100%.
Let me just comment about that, because
sure.
When at the senior prom that I attended, Les Brown's band played, and you could feel, standing near the band, I could feel all that music just hitting me. It resonated in my body, and if you're not there hearing a big band like that, it doesn't even happen with a combo. But with a big band, you feel it, and it's pretty amazing. I understand what Gordon's saying there. Had the same experience. It's exciting. It gets the adrenaline flowing, and they miss that. So anyway,
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Emily
sorry.
at all? We haven't heard from Emily at all, and I know she's got to go to her show.
I was going to say, I was just about to jump down to Emily because I know that she's got to go. So yes, Emily, you're next on the docket. So
I'm ready.
Having yourself appeared in singing competitions and a masterclass with Christina Aguilera, and your work with Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox, and your work with the groups of the Sugar Plums and the Sunset Singers, How did those experiences shape your preparation for the role as Beverly?
You know, I am obsessed with vintage music and vintage style. Right, the show I'm about to go do is a 60s show, so this is my 60s do. And I sing with the USO. I've traveled the world doing Andrew Sisters work. I'm in an Andrew Sisters group, and what we were just talking about with music being relevant today, I think that the popularity of postmodern jukebox is a huge testament to the fact that there is an audience for this type of music. And if you don't know, postmodern jukebox takes popular songs and then puts them in the 40s, 50s, and 60s style.
Cool.
We have a huge following. Like, I went on a tour and we were selling out huge venues of young people, and people love this music. It's real singing, and it's real excitement, you know, and like you said, like the live band. So because that's how I make my living, to answer your question, I felt like I was right on track for Bev. Like, it didn't even really take any real thinking of just wanting to be this girl who is so excited that there is a real band at her school and who wants to bring the vocals to it, because everyone loves vocalists too. And I love singing in harmony. I mean, I'm a soloist and I have a one-woman show, and that's one thing, but singing in harmony with people who are good and with good music and arrangements, there's nothing like it. And so this show, I mean, this movie was everything I love in one. It was so exciting. Oh, shooting it was so fun.
And who are some of your biggest vocal and creative inspirations?
Well, the Andrews Sisters, and then like Carmen McRae is a huge inspiration for me. And then more popular, Janelle Monáe, who also uses, I feel like, a lot of a big band sound, and Bruno Mars. Like, they both bring the horns in and all of that. And Christina Aguilera, we love Christina. And Amy Winehouse too. She uses a lot of jazz influence.
Powerhouse.
I love these artists that actually are doing vintage styles. You know, like Christina Aguilera had an entire album that was basically a 40s album.
Oh, did she?
And like if you look up the song Candyman, it's nowadays like an Andrews Sisters group, and it's three of her, but like people, this music doesn't go out of style. It's here.
So, and Jeremy, to get you involved in this here, and you touched on this, Emily, but is the next generation of artists and actors and creatives, do you feel there's a growing appreciation, for music of that era? Jeremy, what's your thoughts on that as well?
I mean, I do. I feel, especially nowadays, it feels like a lot of things are being repeated. Like, a lot of remakes are happening, and there's just this, I don't know, it's like when I listen to music from today, as opposed to, like, I grew up listening to like Teddy Pendergrass and Al Green and the Staple Singers, like all these great groups that really sang. It was less about the performance and more about the music.
Yeah.
And that's what sort of brings the heart and the body and the soul into wanting to just feel the vibe of all of that and really express yourself in it. And I think, like Emily said, like the postmodern jukebox, I mean, I really enjoy just anything that doesn't sound like today, basically. It just,
it's so interesting because it is today.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like today, but it is. Like,
but it's just nice for them to take like something so new and make it sound postmodern, make it sound like that old, especially the Anderson sisters. I remember in college, I lived on a floor with a bunch of singers, and there's this 3 girls that would always be singing in the hallway, and I would just like drift around listening to them, because it's just mesmerizing to listen to harmonies like that.
Yeah.
You don't hear too much of that anymore.
Yeah, fair. And so again, between the two of you, Jeremy and Emily, what was the most fun scene to shoot for you guys? Was there one? I mean, maybe difficult to choose.
For me, the most fun that I had was the end. I don't want to give anything away, but at the end, there is a big competition, and we do the victory stomp and You Gotta Have a Dream, I think. And it was like the entire cast was on stage. And all of the teachers were there. And, you know, we were in this gorgeous, gorgeous venue, that theater that we were filming in. And we were also doing it in the middle of COVID. So like I had not been in a theater in a year when we filmed that. And so just being there and the magic of it, and then having our entire cast on stage, and we're really singing, we're really playing. And the energy is just so excited, and we really want to win that competition. And we're just, and right before it, we had filmed the scene about like us about to like walk out on stage. And like you said, I've done a lot of competing. I grew up doing show choir competitions, and I've done reality TV competitions, and that energy of right before you step on stage is very real. And we really all had that energy together as a cast, and we were really fighting and singing and playing for our lives. And I loved that scene. And we looked good. We were in those white outfits. We looked good.
Do you second that sentiment, Jeremy?
I mean, I love that scene, but the one that takes it for me is when we play for the school board. Like at that point, you know, just putting in all the practice on the instruments and really trying to get the notes down and make sure like we were ready for it. There was just this, it was like the room was just so full of grace when we filmed that scene. I think we only did a couple takes, and just even watching it back, it brought me to tears, because there was just, you could tell the amount of work that went into that performance.
Yeah.
And there was just so much joy in watching it.
Then we break out into dance afterwards, which was also really fun. Everyone started dancing. It's great.
Yeah, that scene, actually, because we filmed it with two cameras, one with an overhead and one steady cam. And what was interesting about it is it's actually a 12-minute take. The entire scene was filmed all connected. And then of course we did some, you know, shots where we punched in and we went to different aspects, but there's a version of the whole thing. And I remember when we said cut on that, when that scene was ended, everybody just cheered, because like we couldn't believe that we pulled the whole thing off with all three songs.
And it was like 1 a.m.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
1 a.m, and we are dancing our butts off.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna do one more between Jeremy and Emily, then I'm gonna jump over to Richard. But when reflecting back on this movie, say 10 years from now, what moment or moments do you think you'll think about most fondly, like most dear to your heart?
Jeremy, do you want to go first? I went first last time.
Sure. I mean, for me, it's the family, you know. It was, I really got to grow with these people and these artists, and, you know, and go through the woes and the building blocks that it took to make this amazing movie. And I think just being able to sit in that room with the pajama boys and, you know, hear Emilio yell action, and just being in that moment of like, this is it, you know, like we're doing this, we're creating this. And I think this film is really inspiring to watch, because it shows what happens when you have a little bit of hope and a dream to sort of, you know, push through and see yourself through, to see what happens if you just persevere.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, same thing. I will think of the bonds that we made as a cast. We had so much fun filming this, and as a cast and a crew, like the entire team was wonderful. I walked away from this movie being like, okay, if I am ever making a movie myself, I need these people here. Like, it was so wonderful. And that first summer that we filmed, when it was so hot in those rooms, and we couldn't have the air on. And everyone was like so supportive. Everyone like pointing, when we could turn the air on, pointing those huge air conditioning vents at each other, and all of us having fun. Like, there were so many off camera times that were so much fun. And then you see that bond when you're watching the movie between us, because look, these are a bunch of high school kids like having a great time making music together. And I feel like that really is special, and it's rare. And this was a long process too. You know, we've been working on this movie for a long time. And so having the fact that it's finally done and the final product, and And we all grew as people and performers over this process. And yeah, I think that's what I'll look back on.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell just, watching the movie, it's so vibrant and fun that I would think nothing less than it was nothing but a joy to work on. I mean, everything seems so fun and vibrant, but yeah.
It really was.
I'm glad
really
it comes
was. And
across.
the music made it like,
Yeah, very
the
much
music
so
was
does.
just top notch.
So
Yeah.
Richard, are you a musician yourself?
No, sadly, I'm not. I'm a frustrated musician.
What does that entail?
Yeah, I mean, I took up the saxophone late. I tried it for a couple of years. I had this romantic view of me playing the sax, but I was so busy, I could never really I frustrated my, Rick Rossi was my teacher, because I was busy as an actor, and I actually lived in this house in Studio City next to a professional composer, Rolf Kent, who's done a lot of Alexander Payne films. And he would call me up and say, can you mellow out on the sax? Because I was just doing these scales over and over and over again. And he's composing music for about one of these films. And it was messing with him. So anyway, I'm a frustrated musician. I think I'm a big appreciator of music. I grew up in a house. My father had an incredible, extensive record collection. In fact, he played the sax when he was a younger man. And I just love music, and a bit of a, just a huge fan and a bit of an academic about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Rich is like a walking encyclopedia, by the way, of musicians, filmmakers, directors, actors. I mean, he's our go-to source. Like, you could probably ask him about, hey, did you ever see this film? And we'll go, well, yeah, of course. And so directed it, and this guy did the music, and it's like, he's pretty amazing. But he did actually play the piano in the movie, in that scene in his living room. He actually did play that little.
Nice. Okay.
Fortunately, my wife we have a piano. My daughter took piano lessons, so we still have this piano. So Emilio is very patient teaching me, and my wife coached me. And of course, Emilio, we filmed Emilio conducting, and that was basically learning choreography to learn how to conduct. I was emulating. Emilio was very generous, saying, make it your own, make it your own. We're going to throw in a little bit of Bobby Darin moves or whatever. But, I was basically taking the choreography that Emilio demonstrated for me, and I was just practicing it over and over and over again. And that's one of the silver linings of this film taking almost 2 years to complete because of the pandemic, that I rehearsed the conducting a lot, where, you can actually believe you can conduct, I mean, the method of acting.
It was great.
Well, thank you. I had a wonderful support from Emily and the band, because I'm faking it. You're acting, you're pretending to be a conductor, I'm pretending to be Quincy Jones or Leonard Bernstein or whatever. But, you actually have to, embrace it. And Emilio was very patient with me, and he was a good teacher. And I just, I didn't want to be over the top, but I wanted to be believable and a little bit dramatic.
Well, sure, yeah.
And be interesting, but not upstage any of the, the real fireworks in front of me, which really.
There was one moment, it was great when we were working on some of the songs, because I would videotape myself doing it, and then, as Richard said, it would the choreography. But I remember he came to me, he said, I was watching Quincy Jones conduct this thing, and he did this move, and I want to. What do you think? Should I put that in there? And I said, yeah, man, go for it. It's Quincy.
That's awesome.
And so Richard
directing, I think Mac the Knife or one of the Sinatra sessions, and he was just he had this great band. You can find on YouTube, George Benson's playing guitar and all these amazing musicians, and I forget the gesture, but it was conductors sometimes. Actually, Emilio was doing that. Pretending to be the trombonist at a certain point to, emulate that musician there. Yeah. And Quincy was doing something like a punch.
Right.
That was very dramatic, and it seemed to be really the moment to do it.
Richard, where Quincy got that, which is interesting given our discussion. He was very influenced a lot by Thad Jones, because Quincy wrote a lot for the Basie band when he was a young man. And including work with Sinatra and stuff.
Right.
But he knew Thad, and Thad conducts in the same way, where he's not beating time. Because with these musicians, you don't have to show them where the time is, but what you have to do is inspire them to give it the right spirit. So Thad had these kind of quirky things that were all his own, just things that he would do with his hands and to shape the music. And I think Quincy learned to do that from Thad. And Quincy, his main thing is to inspire people to do their best. In the end, that's kind of what a conductor needs to do.
Mhm.
Let's say goodbye to Emily. She has to
Yes,
go.
Emily.
Hi,
Thank you
Emily.
so much,
Break
Emily.
Bye,
Great chatting with
everyone.
you.
So
We
good to
love
see you.
Take care.
Recollection.
Best of luck. Not that
See
you
you
need it,
soon.
probably. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Emily.
All right. So, but Richard, can you talk a little bit more about your preparation for the role? Did you kind of submerge yourself in listening to all kinds of big band music? And can you just touch on your preparation for the role?
I was always a fan of big band. As I said, my dad had an extensive collection. We'd have Sinatra or Basie or just Louis Armstrong, and I was always a fan of that music.
Yeah.
And for Emilio and I did this film a few years back called Prodigy. That's where we first met. And when he approached me about this role, I mean, my gut feeling was that, because I'm a dad, my approach was that I'm a father figure to these juniors and seniors in high school. So that was, emotionally, that's the connection. I'm a sort of a father figure because my character, Mr. Miller, is not a father. So, and his passion, we find out in the course of the film, has always been music, his relationship with his famous brother. And it was always part of his life. And he kind of gave it up or put it on hold to teach in this public school, like a lot of people in the arts have to have a day job, have this gig, but you still have this wonderful, this first love of music.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, as an artist, you know what that's like, something that emotionally that you feel like has been you haven't been able to exercise that passion and that love. And then you see that spark in the younger kids. And I had spent some time teaching myself. I was part of a theater company back east, and I'd be an artist in residence where we perform a play in town. And at the same time, I'd be teaching in the high school, doing acting classes to all ages from kindergarten to seniors in high school. And I did that for a few years. So I knew what that was like to try to inspire, and you're lucky to get a few people that are really into it and other people are not. But when you see a group of people that are really into what you're teaching, it inspires you and you become that child again. And I think that's the thing, you never lose that initial love of whether it be music or acting. That's when you see it in a younger person who's open and passionate, you have a kindred spirit. I think we all have that. We all have that love. And it's just wonderful to try to nurture and guide and be part of that with younger people.
Yeah.
I think Gordon knows that very well from all the clinics that you've done with young bands and see, what was really interesting, Paul, when we did the Battle of the Bands, we had two young groups of musicians, many of them from Cal State Fullerton. And these young musicians all know who Gordon is. And when he walked on set, that was like they were seeing their biggest hero ever, because these kids had been fans of his band. And now to see him in person, many of them hadn't met him in person. They were asking him for his autograph, talking to him. And Gordon was really gracious in giving his time to these young students and these kids. And I'm sure it was a thrill for both sides, because
I was just worried about remembering my lines. You kidding?
That's funny.
Well, and I want to dovetail off of what Richard mentioned about the father figure, because it kind of took me by surprise. Richard and I worked in that movie, as he mentioned, Prodigy, where I play a horrible person and he plays this very understanding and compassionate psychiatrist. And so we were like this in that movie, but we got to be great friends off screen. And we continued our relationship after that. And then when this came up, I thought, well, here's a guy, because there's a lot of dialogue for Mr. Miller and a lot of things to remember. And Richard was amazing with the amount of dialogue that he had to learn for Prodigy, because the sessions between him and this young girl go on and on and on. And he has paragraphs of monologues and things that he did it so adroitly. I thought, well, I'm never going to worry about if this guy's not going to be in the moment, because he's a great actor to begin with. But some actors have trouble with dialogue. He does not. And he does not because, like me, he goes over it and over it, like he says, and over. I mean, we just make sure our preparation is what makes it happen by just going over the material. But when he mentioned a few minutes ago about the father figure, it was something I hadn't thought about as a director at all, that's where he would go. I said, well, what do you really feel Mr. Miller is to these kids? Like, because I'm thinking all about he's an inspiration musically, and he's into the music, and what's the music? He's getting back into the music for himself, all of those things. And Richard said, no, the most important thing I've got to be in this movie is a father figure to these kids, because that's the way I'll nurture through the music. And he has a couple of lines in there where he says this band it's more than a band. It's like a refuge. It's like their home. And he created that because of his fatherly sensibilities towards these young students, which really plays really well in the movie, I think.
Absolutely. I would agree with that for sure.
May I jump in here with just a comment?
Yeah.
Because I watched Prodigy, and afterward I called Emilio and I said, who is this guy that, that's playing the psychiatrist? And Emilio talked a little bit about Richard. And then I said, wouldn't he be a great guy to play Miller in the Nights of Swing? And so Emilio thought about that, I think maybe 10 seconds. I don't know, not very long, but I mean, we both agreed that in terms of the what he conveyed, just conveyed through his own personality and the way he Richard was speaking and so forth, he would do a great job on this. I never thought, as I wrote out the play and everything, I never thought of him as a father figure, just as the leader of the band and so forth. But then, see, that's the beauty of this. He did his thing with the character. He developed the character and became more of this father figure, and that worked very well. It added another whole dimension to it. And
100%.
Made a good choice, didn't we, Emilio?
And Rolland, I wanted to ask you as well. What were the inspirations for the Jammin' Pajama Men and the 3Bs and the Wilson High Raiders? What were the inspirations behind those?
Well, the Jammin' Pajama Men, that was the title that my daughter gave me. She said, I think I'd like to form a band called the Jammin' Pajama Men, when she was in the 4th grade. This is like 40 years ago. So that's always stuck in my head. And so when I started working on this screenplay, she asked me if there was any way to work in the Jammin' Pajama Men, and I said, I don't know, I'll see about it. So we did. So that's where that came from. But and when we were thinking of a 10-episode series, I did a lot with that. I mean, there were more things that we were going to have them do, and just the 6 guys being in this combo and as the Jammin' Pajama Men. Of course, that all got blown away. The Wilson High Raiders. It turns out that that Wilson High I was always thinking of Long Beach, and it was when I was in Linwood. There was Wilson High down in Long Beach, and that's where I came up with it. Raiders, I don't know where that came from. Sort of popped in my head. What was the other question?
How about the 3Bs?
Oh, the 3Bs. Well, that's the Andrews Sisters, of course.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I wanted a trio that would be, as good as them. And I think definitely when you look at what Emily and the other 2 girls did, and the arrangements, and that Darlene Kohlenhoven did, I mean, they're fantastic. I mean, I think they would, compare very favorably. But so, Bev, Barb, and Bonnie, the 3Bs, and And anyway, that's where that all came from.
Nice.
So, and
Gotcha.
as long as I'm talking here, there was a battle of the bands in 1950.
That's gonna be my next question.
Yeah, because I attended Linwood Castle through the 10th grade and then went to Compton Junior College for the 11th and 12th and played in a big band there. And we competed in the Battle of the Bands in 1950. And I don't know whether it was the first one or what, but it was actually broadcast out of Channel 11 and we won it. And got a bunch of instruments and stuff like that. So I have no idea whether it was, I kind of think it was the first one, although I don't know, Gordon, maybe you know if it was.
Yeah, there was another one that I participated in when I was in high school, Battle of the Bands, and the finals are at the Hollywood Bowl. So you go off all these different rounds, and if you make the finals, you're on stage at the bowl. So I was on there as a high school kid looking out, at this, this iconic venue, completely life-changing. So I think that was another bit of serendipity for me to be doing this movie with that particular title. Definitely brought it back.
Yeah, well, Channel 11, it was a little stage. We're all crammed up on this little stage, and there probably wasn't seating for 30 people out in front of us. This was this little room,
Yeah.
But it was, again, as far as I know, it was the first one, and we won it. And then the other question that you had asked, Paul, was on the paper was, how was it that I ended up in Linwood and Compton? I was born in Compton, and then my parents moved to Linwood, which is adjacent city, town. I mean, it's just right there. And back then, of course, it was, it was all different. I mean, ethnically, it was, it changed considerably over the years. So it was a great place to grow up. And Compton was integrated. The high school there was integrated. We had all kinds of races in our band that won that Battle of the Bands, and that was part of the inspiration for an ethnically mixed group. I wanted to make sure that had some, different guys in it, and that would convey what that band was, and we did a great job of that. Mm-hmm.
Rolland, didn't you become a principal of Compton High then?
Pardon?
Wow.
Rolland, didn't you become the principal of Compton High?
Not me. No. No, I was principal of an elementary school in what is now Rolland Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I graduated from Compton in 1950.
Right.
Yeah.
But weren't you only 27 years old when you became the principal?
I was.
Oh, wow.
Told me I was the youngest principal in the state at that time. That was in, when was it? And I had the largest school. I had an elementary school that had 1,050 students, double addition. Anyway, it was dynamic growth and lots of things going on there. It was a great experience. During that time, I wrote a lot of songs, but I never wrote, I composed a lot of songs in my head, but never really wrote them down. But that teaching, as I said, in 1956 to my 7th graders was the inspiration for Schoolroom Blues. So there you go.
Yeah, interesting. So Emilio, when did the movie film, and how long did it take to all flesh out?
Well, if you start from the very first song, Schoolroom Blues, Rolland sent me that in February of 2018. Okay. And then we started, then he sent me You Gotta Have a Dream and Love Is Ours Tonight. And we started building this repertoire of the songs over the course of the rest of 2018 and then into 2019. And then what would be a year later from when I wrote the first arrangement of Schoolroom Blues, we started rehearsing and putting the cast together for the Nights of Swing. And as we were developing the screenplay together, and at that point, it was just going to be a pilot episode, which would end when we play for the school board. So it was about 45 minutes. And that first part of the pilot was filmed in June of 2019. So we got the band together. We rehearsed from February, March, April. Richard was working on his conducting. I was working on my character as the principal of the school. And we're going to sort of give this away a little bit, but it was really admirable what Jeremy did, because Jeremy, you would never know that Jeremy is not a trombone player when you watch this movie. But what Jeremy did is, we had one of the girl who plays trombone in the band, Jordan Wainwright, did videos of her playing all the slide positions of all of the notes in it. And like Richard, in terms of learning his conducting, Jeremy, we got him a trombone, we rented him a trombone, and he learned every one of those slide moves, so that when someone who really does play the trombone watches it, they don't know that he doesn't know how to play, because he was so convincing. And there's only 3 musicians in the band that don't really play. Everyone else in both bands are actually full-time musicians.
Wow.
But,
okay.
So Jeremy and our trumpet player, the gentleman, Elliot, Christopher Pollock, did the same thing. He had a friend of his write out almost like guitar tablature, which, okay, hold this valve down, and he wrote those over every note in all of the charts. And just like Jeremy, he learned it as choreography, so that when he's playing, all of those valve moves are exactly what a trumpet player would play to play those notes. So that we kept the realism, and people have always commented about that the music is so tight, and the way it's filmed, it's, because it's so disappointing to watch a movie that's about music. And I remember there was some movie, I think Sean Penn was playing guitar in a Woody Allen movie, and the lick is going do, 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 and it's going up the neck like this, and he's going down this way, and it has nothing to do with what he's playing. And I know musicians always get really annoyed when you watch a film about music and they're not really on what they're playing. So we made sure, we rehearsed many times, not only as a full band with Richard practicing his conducting, but individually with Jeremy and the other musicians. So, and the other musicians could just read the music because they're all musicians, but these guys had to learn it like choreography, which was, to me, astounding.
Yeah,
Absolutely, extremely time consuming too, I'm sure.
Yes.
I can imagine. Yeah, my gosh.
I remember one time Jeremy said to me, he had to go back. He went back to Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he went back to Chicago, and he didn't bring the trombone with him because it was a rental. He didn't want anything to happen to it. And he was there for, I don't know, a couple of weeks maybe before we started filming. But he said he took a broomstick and he used that as the and practiced his slide moves on a broomstick. A dedicated actor musician.
It was tough stuff. I mean, the victory stomp alone.
Yeah.
Once I went through and wrote like all the little numbers above the notes. I was practicing it, and then I remember I hit the play button on the song, and I was like, "Oh, it's that fast." And so, really, up until the moment that we filmed that final scene in front of the school board, I was sweating bullets, because it's definitely a big feat. The trombone is not an easy instrument to take on. But Jordan was so great. I mean, I remember when I got to set that day and we were going to play, she was like, "Oh, this note's wrong. This note's wrong." So she fixed it all in there for me. But because I'd gotten so comfortable at following my own tablature above it, anytime she made a switch, it was just like, "Oh, okay, cool. I feel like I can actually play the music now, because I'm just sort of following my own little cheat sheet."
If I could say, Emilio's commitment to realism in terms of the things we're talking about, I mean, it's really great. It's really important. And you think about, if we saw a movie about baseball and we saw a guy up at the plate holding his bat in a weird way, we'd all go, "What?" Right? We know what that's supposed to look like, where most lay people really don't know what the trombone position is supposed to look like, or what a conductor is supposed to look like necessarily. But that doesn't matter when you're trying to tell a story with integrity and truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the filmmaker's attention to these details, it pays off in a lot of ways, but particularly it goes beyond that. So the way Emilio's cutting the films, since he's an accomplished jazz musician, like an upper level pianist, you can see that reflected in his edit, in the pacing of actually how he lets the actors perform. He's not just kind of cutting the performance together with a lot of edits. Like I'm on, with these guys, and I'm not as comfortable in front of the camera as them, but with Richard as just this calm anchor, and Emilio as someone who also as a musician understands the rhythm and the pacing of telling a story, whether you're telling the story musically or you're telling it theatrically. It felt so comfortable, and we trusted each other, so that if I'm feeling like, okay, how fast do I deliver this line, or how much do I pause before this? They tell you subliminally in terms of just how they interact with you. And that's, I think, it's the key, not only to really effective acting, but also effective music performance. When you get a group of musicians that trust each other and let that energy flow as it will, that's when the magic happens. And it was just, you can see that through this whole film.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gordon.
So, of course, there's themes of, racism, and, it's based shortly after World War II has ended. How do you think, this subject matter, how do you hope this film will resonate, today, for those who watch it today, and what we're going through today versus back then?
Well, I think it's important for Jeremy to jump in and talk about that, because it's something that we discussed quite a bit in putting this together. And Jeremy and I had been in acting classes for several years, and we worked together, and he really trusted me, and I trusted him as far as our relationship in terms of working together as actors, just to begin with. And Jeremy, jump in.
I mean, I feel like a lot of what is being addressed in the movie is still being addressed. I mean,
Right.
So I think it just gives people like a magnifying glass into what it's like to be inside of those moments, the fear, the PTSD, the hopelessness, the anger and the grief, and just the looking for an opportunity to feel happy, to feel joy. Yeah. And I feel like that's what happens with the Pajama Men, is that they have this thing, that brings them happiness, and they really try to put their whole spirits into it. And Conrad's character, coming in as the Black guy, in the group with all these white kids, it's this feeling of like forgetting color and forgetting the stereotypes and the thoughts of who I'm supposed to be, and allowing me to just be myself and exist here and do what I love. And I think that's just an important thing of how the world is evolving right now, and the recognition of just sort of pronouns and the LGBTQX and all of that, just everyone getting an understanding that like who we are is more than what we do and how we live. Because I really feel like a key to this movie comes down to is love, the understanding to love yourself and to love your neighbor and to move in rhythm, with them, and make good music.
Yeah. It seemed like a theme of forgiveness too, really.
100%. Especially, when you look at what happens between Conrad and Mrs. Barlutsky, this woman who, because of a tragedy that happened with her son and how the information was relayed, she had a story in her mind about a culture of people. But after seeing an act of kindness performed by someone of that same background, she's able to alleviate herself of that burden of this thought form and really release it and forgive this young man for his acts and sort of forgive herself for how she was treating him.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful moment in the movie too, at the bus stop when when the bus is getting ready to go, and she approaches you and calls you the courageous young man who saved her daughter. It's just that everybody on set was very verklempt. Because it was so real and so heartfelt.
Yeah, I can imagine. So is there this is for Rolland or anybody, but is there a Knights of Swing Foundation or one in the works?
No, not a foundation, but
okay, anything that supports modern. Okay,
there might be, and other things related to the Knights of Swing. So that certainly wouldn't rule that out.
Fair.
Well,
okay.
one of the things we're hoping for, Paul, is Gordon's connection with a lot of these, as he was talking about the gold of these young band geeks, so to speak, that we're hoping that they'll, with Gordon's presence in the movie and his popularity, will reach some of these young big band musicians in both in high schools and colleges all across the country. And we're hoping that that will help get the message of the movie out to everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Fair.
And I mean, just based on that comment, I suppose we could have a foundation that would promote that kind of thing, you know, in cooperation with Gordon, but it's not in the works yet. So, yeah.
That's a great idea, though. You know, jazz education is a really important part of the fabric of schools. And as Gordon mentioned earlier, that a lot of the schools are cutting back on those things. So we're hoping to get all of these arrangements, including the vocal arrangements, all published for high schools and college bands to play across the country. And we think that that's going to help with the popularity of the music.
You know, I could make one comment if I would about the message of the movie and how it's not just about preserving the arts or appreciating the arts. The message about music and its power to heal, its power to unify, its power, it's an incredible lubricant, right? And so because Emilio and I talked a little bit about the issue of race in this movie, because back when this all was happening, you had the black bands, you know, Basie and Ellington, and you had the white bands, Dorsey and, you know, Benny Goodman and, you know, and Glenn Miller. And then as it went along, some, like Benny Goodman was one of them. So he had his quartet and he had Teddy Wilson on piano and Lionel Hampton. And he took a lot of grief from a lot of people, particularly in the South, and couldn't even book the band. And so I love the fact that we made a choice, they made a choice, I should say, to present this, Jeremy's character. This is what it should be. Yeah. Maybe you know, a black kid in the 50s or the 40s is not going to get in that band. Maybe sometime, I don't know. But this is the ideal how it could be, to inspire people, you know, as Jeremy said, move in that direction where you don't even think about his melanin content. What kind of person is he? What kind of musician is he? You know, this is, I think, what art can do in a way that words and diplomacy and laws and regulations can't quite ever do in the same way. So that's what really excites me about this movie and some of the opportunities beyond entertainment, beyond the music appreciation.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
You know, to tell about what Gordon was saying, you know, the same thing happened with Louis Armstrong. I mean, he was at one point not going to play in his hometown, New Orleans or in the South, because he had an integrated band and they wouldn't allow that. And one of the films I showed Emilio as we were preparing this was A Ball of Fire with Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. And in that is an incredible performance of Drum Boogie by Gene Krupa and his orchestra. And Roy Eldridge is the lead trumpeter on that. And you can't even tell it's an integrated band. The way they shot I mean, you have to look at this. You can watch the Drum Boogie on YouTube, but Roy Eldridge has a solo where he stands up, but because the lighting and they were worried about the reception in the South, it's somehow dark. And when he's standing up playing his lead trumpet, you don't even know it's a black man. It's so weird. But Gene Krupa stood behind. He goes, I'm not going to be in this without Roy Eldridge. Roy Eldridge is my lead trumpeter. And so Gene Krupa stood up for that. But still, Howard Hawks and whatever the film producers decide, well, we're going to somehow disguise it a little bit. He's going to stand up, and he could be just a dark-skinned person or something. You don't even know it's a black man standing up, blowing this amazing solo. But Gene Krupa, forced the issue, and it's 1947. That film came out in 1947, the same year Nights of Swing takes place. So it's so relevant.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah, let me comment here, because as I said, I went to Compton, which was an integrated school, probably a fourth black, 3/4 white. Our band was certainly integrated. We had, I don't know, 3 or 4 black guys in the band. We had a couple of Filipinos, a guy from the Philippines playing the piano, and that worked. We all worked together. And I'm now just thinking about this. That probably was very unusual back then. I mean, maybe not so much in Southern California, but in terms of the United States, probably very unusual. But we didn't think about it. We were just all there. We got along. This is our life. What do we know about all the rest of it? Not much. When you're 16, 15, 16, you just living your life, and here we are, and we got this band, and there are a bunch of great guys in the band, and we got along. So we must have been doing something then that was quite unusual as I look back on it. But that, of course, got written into the movie because that's the way I wanted it. And I think it's worked out very, very well. Emilio actually amped this up a little bit, which was even better by making it very, very ethnically diverse, which was great, I think, for the people in the actual movie, and now for the people watching the movie to see that.
Well, I think that's what I agree with you 100%, Rolland, and I think that's what Jeremy was alluding to, that the way he was in the Jammin' Pajama Men, those guys were just buddies, and they were friends, and how Jeremy said, well, I was just being me, not trying to represent or anything, just being me. And that's, I think, the thing that comes across as far as the relationships between the young men. That's really, really, and it was funny because when we did our first premiere, I'll never forget, one of the audience members, I said, so what did you think? And they said, it's healthy. The movie's healthy. And I thought, what a description to describe a movie. It's healthy. And I think that's a wonderful thing to say in a sort of a roundabout way of saying it's here. It's healthy because it's here, And I think that's one of the loveliest parts of the Nights of Swing is the camaraderie, when Giff and his older brother express their unconditional love as brothers, even though his older brother was a terribly mean older brother to him. And I think there's just so many moments in the film that are really going to touch people's hearts. And I suppose we need to kind of wrap it up here, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna have a couple final questions here. So the film's motto tagline is "You gotta have a dream." So what's your dream for the movie and how it will resonate with people? And whoever would like to answer that.
Rolland?
Me, yeah. Well, my dream for the movie is that people would get the message that music brings people together regardless of race, gender, nationality, whatever it is. It can, and if we are sensitive to that we will do that. My other hope for the movie is that it will be a movie that people will watch instead of other movies that have violence and bad values and all of those things. Billy and I talked about this a lot. Now, will it inspire other movie producers to sort of move away from the violence and get into something that's more wholesome? Who knows? But that would be wonderful if somebody would say, you know what, I did this movie because I watched The Nights of Swing and I thought, I want a movie that's like that. I mean, that would be fulfilling one of my dreams. Yeah.
And lastly, might there be a Nights of Swing single or sequel rather?
Well, we've bounced around some story ideas already about where it can go. We're planning on getting this out there, seeing what the reactions are and how well it does. Rolland and I actually are finishing, as he mentioned earlier, this project called 47 Days, which is a devotional song cycle about the last 47 days of Christ's life on earth. And we'll be finishing that in a few weeks. And we're really excited about that. But Rolland also wrote a musical called Busy, spelled Bizzzy, and it's a musical drama, comedy, but it's an actual musical. It's not a movie that has music in it. And we're already doing pre-production on that. So if we would do a sequel to Nights of Swing, it would be in that order.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for chatting with me. And I really enjoyed the movie, and it's been a pleasure learning more about it from behind the scenes. And I guess that'll do it.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you guys so much, and take care and best of luck with everything.
All right.
Keep swinging.
Hi,
Take
everybody.
care. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.